exposed, inspiring black woman CEO's seat stolen, flight grounded, incredible truth revealed. Maya Thompson's breath hitched as her fingers tightened around her phone. She stared at the message blinking on the screen. Marcus has taken your board seat. The words landed like a punch to her gut, leaving an emptiness that spread through her chest. This was the man who had guided her, taught her the ins and outs of the tech landscape, and now he stood as a barrier, blocking her ascent in a world determined to keep her in the shadows. The betrayal felt like a sidewalk crack, threatening to swallow her whole. Maya had worked tirelessly to build her company, pouring her soul into every line of code, every pitch, every sleepless night. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind. Success comes at a cost. But was this the price she was meant to pay? She felt the tension rising, been through the ringer of economic hardships as a child, and here she stood, ready to break the glass ceiling, only to be blindsided by someone she had trusted. Doubt crept in. Was her ambition strong enough to fight back? The whispers of self-doubt clawed at her thoughts. Should she confront Marcus? Expose his treachery? She pictured his smirk, the way he savored power, and felt an instinctual wave of anger. But then her heart fluttered with apprehension, questioning if it was worth the fight. Each flicker of thought felt like shards of glass, wounding as they embedded in her mind. Before she could spiral deeper into despair, the airport terminal loomed ahead. Maya hurried to the gate, determined to rise above this setback. She had a presentation to deliver in San Francisco that could shift the narrative in the technology sector, one that spotlighted the challenges faced by women of color like her. It was a chance to tell her story, to reclaim her place. The weight of expectation pressed against her chest as she approached boarding, every person around her fading into the background. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she boarded the plane, a sudden announcement echoed through the cabin. We're experiencing a delay. Disappointment washed over her like a cold tide, shifting her focus. Seated next to her was a flight attendant named Clara. There was something unyielding about the woman, the way she folded her arms, the wisdom etched on her face. Clara caught Maya's eye, and without hesitation, launched into her own story, a tale of resilience and relentless pursuit of dreams against all odds. Maya listened intently, feeling the flicker of hope in Clara's words. The gravity of her own situation felt heavier, suffocating her, as shackles of expectation wrapped tight around her aspirations. Just as Clara's story sparked a fire within her, another message pinged on her phone, this one chilling. Something darker was at play, a conspiracy that hinted at forces wanting to keep her silent. The realization sent a new wave of dread through her veins, her once clear purpose now tangled in shadows. Standing on the brink of an uncertain destiny, Maya's heart raced with turmoil. Would she allow herself to be silenced, or would she carve out her truth, even at the cost of destroying the fabric of her belief in mentorship and loyalty? The stakes had never been higher, and the clock ticked ominously. In the face of betrayal, ambition stirred within her, a fierce urge to rise, to fight, to never be buried beneath the weight of anyone's expectations. In the uncertainty, a promise of justice burned fiercely, demanding her to reclaim the narrative before it was snatched away once more. Maya's mind raced as Clara's story settled in. The words about perseverance reverberated through her consciousness, shifting her perspective just enough to buoy her spirit. Yet, as the plane remained grounded, the implications of Marcus's betrayal lingered like storm clouds overhead. Every tick of the clock prickled her impatience, pushing her urgency to another level. She had been climbing walls her entire life. What was one more challenge? Clara leaned toward her, sensing the tension. You seem troubled. What's on your mind? Maya paused, contemplating the precipice of vulnerability. I just lost something I worked so hard for, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. Trust, a seat at the table, and now. Now I feel trapped in a system designed to silence voices like mine. For a moment Maya expected pity, but instead Clara's eyes sparkled with understanding. Don't let that situation define you. Channel your anger into something productive. This might be a moment for you to reinvent the very table they think they can keep you from. Maya met Clara's gaze, a deep exchange igniting an ember of defiance within her. What if this was not just about reclaiming her board seat? What if this was her chance to build something greater, to create a platform that ushered in change rather than seeking boardroom validation? With each passing moment, ideas began to coalesce in her head. What if she utilized the narrative of her journey, the struggles, the fights, the ultimate betrayals, to elevate and inspire others? What if she could craft a compelling pitch, not just for investors, but to forge her own way in the industry? As the flight finally took off, wings slicing through the clouds, Maya felt invigorated by the sheer act of flight. The landscape below faded into a tapestry of possibilities. She envisioned hosting workshops, speaking engagements, and even creating a mentorship program specifically for women of color in technology. There were sweeping changes to be made, and she could be at the helm of that movement. Clara nudged her gently, bringing her back from the precipice of daydreams. "You look like you've figured something out," she noted, a knowing smile framed by her fiercely confident demeanor. "I think I have. I'm not going to let this define me. I'm going to create my own narrative instead of being written out of it," Maya replied, her voice gaining strength. A new pulse of determination surged through her. The specter of betrayal morphed into fuel. The notion of an industry that sought to silence women like her was a challenge she was willing to accept, and the air of the plane felt charged with her evolving resolve. As the plane flew higher, her plans shifted from mere aspirations to actionable steps. She envisioned a powerful presentation not just as a pitch, but as a manifesto for change. But in the back of her mind, she also understood that Marcus wouldn't let her go easily. A confrontation would be inevitable, as he operated in a world of secrets, and she now stood in the light, ready to pull those shadows into awareness. Then, just as clarity settled in, her phone buzzed again. Another message, and this time she braced herself for what it could mean. With a quick glance, she saw Marcus's name flash across the screen, the words stinging. "You should think twice before you make any more moves." Her determination only intensified, morphing into an iron-willed philosophy that fought back against the intimidation. The time had come for Maya to rise, and every betrayal now pointed toward a single truth. She was not going to play by the rules he had set. As the plane leveled out, she clenched her fists, ready to reclaim her narrative. The battle ahead would test her resolve, but this time, she wouldn't be the one hiding in the shadows. Would this confrontation mark the beginning of a new chapter in her quest for empowerment, or would it be yet another step back into silence? The answers waited just beyond the horizon. Maya took a deep breath as the plane leveled out, feeling the vibrations of the engines echoing her internal struggle. The message from Marcus haunted her, a reminder that power struggles in the corporate world often took a ruthless form. But as her hands gripped the armrest, she examined the contours of her resolve. No longer was she just an employee. She had the ambition to transform her setbacks into a positive force. Clara's words danced once more in her mind. Reinvent the table. This phrase fed her creativity, igniting her desire to take back control. What had begun as a reaction to betrayal was now morphing into something she could drive, a crucible for her professional awakening. With her laptop open and ideas swirling, Maya set her sights on developing a framework for her vision. She began drafting an outline for a series of workshops specifically tailored to empower women of color in tech. A blend of practical skills, mentorship, and personal stories would help women navigate spaces that had always felt unwelcoming. She thought of the countless voices, now muted by fear, who could resonate with her journey. Maya quickly tapped out a bullet-point plan. Title: Empowerment Beyond the Boardroom. She envisioned sessions on negotiation, personal branding, and effective communication, alongside panels featuring women who had triumphed against systemic barriers. This would be her way of establishing a new narrative, not only for herself, but for a community yearning for strength and representation. But the earlier elation was tinged with hesitation. Would women want to come to a program inspired by her? Who was she, after all, to lead such an initiative? Those questions wrestled with her ambition. She caught her reflection in the window, a ghostly outline against the dim cabin lights. Seconds later, an unrelenting spark of clarity hit her. Who better than her, a woman who had fought tirelessly to inspire others? It was time to embrace vulnerability. It was part of every great story worth telling. As she crafted her presentation, her focus shifted towards authenticity, a compelling narrative that wove her identity into the fabric of the workshop. She would be honest about her struggles, the betrayal she experienced from Marcus, and her journey toward empowerment. This raw openness would serve as a catalyst, encouraging others to share their truths and fears. The turbulence of her thoughts settled as she imagined standing in front of a room filled with eager faces, ready to break barriers together. The vision filled her chest with warmth. This was no longer a defensive maneuver. It was an offensive challenge, rewriting the story with her as the narrator. Suddenly, her phone chimed again, jolting her back to reality. Another message from Marcus. She braced herself again, expecting a tirade of threats. Instead, what appeared on the screen was a single, chilling sentence. "You know who's watching, right?" The weight of those words felt like a boulder pressing down on her chest. Who was watching? Why did that matter? Underneath the surface of her newfound resolve loomed layers of fear. This wasn't merely a professional hurdle. It had turned personal. The sense of exposure twisted her stomach, prying open old insecurities that whispered doubts about her worthiness. Maya's hands trembled, a surge of adrenaline rushing through her, propelling her towards a pivotal moment. She had to confront Marcus, not just for herself, but for the women whose futures she hoped to impact. The confrontation could reveal the lengths he would go to maintain control and determine if she would become a casualty of his intimidation tactics. Determination flared again. She was ready to confront Marcus, to externalize the fears that had once paralyzed her, but in doing so, would she risk everything she had just begun to build? With clarity returning, she typed back a bold response. "I'm not afraid of your gaze. It only fuels my drive." Maya felt the plane shift with the impending landing, a metaphor for her own resilience. Both were preparing for a new chapter, but she would need to steer with unwavering conviction. Would Marcus respond with further threats, or would he acknowledge the fierce energy she now embodied? Only time would reveal how this story would unfold. As the plane touched down, Maya's heart raced, a drum of anticipation and fear. She had fortified her decision to confront Marcus, but the uncertainty that lingered felt like a weight in her chest. Was she truly ready to face him, to challenge his dominance in a world that had often dismissed her? The truth was, knowledge was a weapon, and she now had several new strategies in her arsenal. With her laptop tucked under her arm, she hurried through the airport, the energy of the arrival terminal blending with her resolve. She wasn't just returning. She was marching back with intention. Her phone buzzed again, and she seized it, her thumb hovering over Marcus's name. His insistence to intimidate her weighed heavily, but this time he wouldn't win. Every notification was a reminder of what she had at stake. In the confines of her sleek corporate office, the towering glass walls felt like both a protection and a prison. She dropped her bag, taking a moment to absorb the power of her surroundings. The city sprawled beneath her, a lively testament to her dreams and aspirations. Each tiny figure below represented someone who had faced their battles in pursuit of success. Would they see her, too, as someone who stood tall against adversity? Maya positioned herself at her sleek desk, opening her laptop. She began to construct the framework for her workshops, with an urgency and precision that left no room for doubt. The messages from Marcus slithered back into her thoughts now and then, but she silenced them with every keystroke that solidified her voice. There would be no room for fear in empowerment beyond the boardroom, only narratives of strength. What made her voice credible? A determination to enact change. She had spent years navigating a corporate landscape riddled with challenges. Overcoming them had fortified her faith in her abilities. She pulled from her experience in clarifying complex technical concepts to demonstrate tangible skills. She was not simply talking, she was shaping a pathway. But doubt flared. Was her voice saturating the industry's noise, or would it be drowned out? Who had she become to lead an initiative of such magnitude? It was at moments like this that her mind would spiral, rehashing insecurities that had haunted her for too long. Taking a breath, she pictured the faces of her peers, women who might feel the same way, and she realized her vulnerability transformed the narrative. They needed honesty, the thread of shared struggles. Would they trust her? If they saw her as an embodiment of resilience, wouldn't she no longer be just a voice but a catalyst for shared empowerment? She flipped through the contacts in her phone, fingers grazing over the names of mentors and allies. 3 calls later, she had 2 agreement confirmations for her first panel discussion. Their stories would intertwine with hers, bringing depth and authenticity. Empowered by strategic alliances, a grin crept onto her lips. Transparency was her greatest asset. She had begun something powerful, and yet her body tingled with the pulse of apprehension at what lay ahead with Marcus. She knew this was not just a series of workshops. It was a counter-offensive in an ideology battle that had persisted for generations. Just then, the office phone rang, slicing sharply through her thoughts. She recognized Marcus's voice instantly, the calmness layered over with a chill that sent shivers down her spine. "I hope you've given thought to the ripple effect of your little project," he said silkily. The air in the room thickened with tension. Before she could respond, he continued, "You know the truth always comes out, don't you?" In that moment, she realized this was the brink. His words challenged her resolve. The confrontation she had prepared for had begun without her invitation. Would she stand her ground, or would fear tug her back into complacency? Maya drew a deep breath. It was time to reclaim her narrative. Maya steadied herself on the edge of her chair, her breath a measured rhythm against the backdrop of Marcus's leer. Each word he uttered was a calculated jab, but it only stoked the fire within her. No longer would she be a passive player in a game governed by another's rules. "Marcus," she began, her voice firm, "every project has a ripple. A legacy is built on the courage to face challenges head-on. So you're correct. This has the potential to create waves." She felt the weight of her words, empowering yet buoyed by an undercurrent of defiance. The silence stretched between them, taut as a tightrope, her heart pounding in a challenging crescendo. Would he take her seriously, or simply view her as a fleeting annoyance? She was battling years of perceived inadequacy, but the time for hesitation had passed. "Your little initiative won't change anything," he retorted, his tone dripping with condescension, yet Maya knew better. It had already changed her. She was evolving, each decision pushing her closer to the leader she aspired to embody. She could not let his dismissal define her. She contemplated her approach. The workshops weren't merely a gathering, but a milestone in her journey, a way to reclaim not just her narrative, but to offer a platform for others to step into their own power. It wasn't just about her ambition. It was about collective empowerment. "I need to own this," she thought. "I am worthy of this progress." Maya's mind raced with strategies. As he jabbed, she listened with an acute sense of purpose, identifying opportunities for counter-arguments. If change is impossible, explain why so many women are rising in their careers. They are fueling a movement, and your words can't extinguish it. "Fueling a movement?" he challenged, a sneer breaking his polished facade. "That's all hypothetical. Reality doesn't cater to dreams. It rewards results." Each syllable pierced her concentration, but instead of retreating, she felt a renewed focus washing over her. If Marcus wanted to play dirty, she would play smarter. "My results come from resilience, Marcus. Your reality does not define mine." They exchanged a charged silence. For the first time, Maya could sense the crack in his armor. His confidence was faltering, and she was gaining ground. This was her moment. Determination surged within her as her hands moved deftly across her keyboard. With each stroke, she began drafting the frameworks for group discussions that would tap into the common thread of hardship, success, and resilience among women in corporate spaces. Engaging in dialogue wouldn't simply spark ideas, it would ignite a revolution of thought. "Imagine if we brought our narratives together. Imagine empowering those who felt voiceless, she proposed, her fervor evident. I can already feel the momentum building. This isn't a fleeting idea. It's a movement meant to shift the industry landscape. As she spoke, the office around her transformed. Those intimidating glass walls now felt like a vibrant arena. Maya inhaled the rich scent of determination that filled the air, buoyed by her own passion. It's coming, Marcus, and you can either choose to stand on the right side of innovation or be left behind, she concluded, her faith in her vision firm. There was a moment of static before he responded, his tone shifting, less confident. Do you really believe you can take this on? You're trying to challenge everything I represent. Maya met his gaze unflinchingly. No, I'm trying to redefine what representation looks like. With that, she hung up, the click of the phone imbued with a victorious energy. The hesitation that plagued her earlier had morphed into clarity. What she had started was more than workshops. It was a declaration. Yet with caution replacing her triumph, doubt seeped in again. Was she truly preparing for the repercussions of her actions? As her fingers tapped on the laptop, the question loomed. What if Marcus retaliated in a way that could threaten everything she was building? As those thoughts spiraled, the urgency of her mission clamored for attention. The battle was only just beginning, and Maya felt the tension envelop her once more. She had reclaimed her narrative, but it was clear that Marcus wouldn't surrender quietly. With the sun setting over the city, she stared ahead resolutely. This was no simple endeavor. The time had come to not merely stand firm, but to rise and prepare for the inevitable clash that awaited. How would she fare under pressure when the truth of her efforts faced scrutiny? Maya took a breath. The stakes had never been higher. The realization hit her. This was a test of her fortitude, and the outcome might determine not only her career, but the future she envisioned for so many others. Maya's heart drummed with the pulse of uncertainty. Every beat echoed with the weight of her newfound resolve. The evening light painted shadows across her office as she reflected on the confrontation with Marcus. She knew well that his dismissive words might have been designed as a weapon, but she had deflected the blows with newfound steel. That was the crux of her evolution. She was no longer the timid woman who accepted the roles assigned to her. Yet as she began to brainstorm initiatives for her workshops, thoughts of retaliation skittered into her mind like unwelcome guests. What if Marcus sought to undermine her? What if he weaponized his influence? Taking a deep breath, she pushed those thoughts aside for now. She needed to harness her focus. Opening a fresh document, Maya started outlining the core objectives of her project. It was essential to create an engaging environment that fostered sharing and learning. She discovered new determination in the details. The language she used would frame the narrative. Empowerment required clarity, and every workshop would feature specific topics aimed at unraveling the complexities women faced in their careers. This was not just about sharing experiences. It was about building actionable paths toward overcoming obstacles. Her phone buzzed violently on the table, breaking her stream of thought. It was a text from her friend Nia. "Are you still up for lunch tomorrow? I heard Marcus is planning to shake things up with a counter-proposal," it read. The mention of Marcus sent a jolt of adrenaline racing through her. A counter-proposal could mean several things. Perhaps he planned to sabotage her efforts or morph her ideas into something she didn't recognize. Doubt clawed at her, but she ignored it. "I'll be there. No matter what he's planning, I won't back down," she typed back, determination anchoring her response. Finishing the outline for her project, she leaned back in her chair and examined her work. Each suggestion resonated with possibility, and suddenly she saw a mirror of her personal journey reflected in the framework. The narrative twisted and turned, echoing her challenges and victories. She could channel these experiences to inspire women who felt lost or uninspired, much like she once had. The next morning, the atmosphere in the cafe buzzed with caffeine-fueled energy. Nia was already seated, and Maya spotted her, waving frantically. Their conversation began casually, but soon enough it shifted to work. "Nia, did you hear about Marcus's proposed leadership summit? It might be an attempt to diminish the impact of my initiative," Maya said, forcing down a surge of frustration. Nia raised an eyebrow thoughtfully. "He's threatened by you, Maya." People like him don't like change, especially not when it's driven by someone they see as beneath them. This could be a pivotal moment for you. Don't let his moves shake your confidence. Maya felt her heart ignite again at Nia's words. This wasn't just a professional rivalry. This was a personal mission, and Marcus was merely an obstacle in her path. I won't give him the power to shape my narrative, she declared, conviction flowing through her. As they continued to talk, ideas coalesced in her mind like pieces of a puzzle. By the time she finished her meal, Maya had a newfound clarity. She needed to prepare an assertive strategy to protect her vision, and she needed allies. Later that evening, she dived into crafting a presentation, mindful of possible criticisms Marcus might aim at her workshops. She anticipated his arguments, thinking 2 steps ahead of him, not out of fear, but strategy. This was a war of influence, and she would not only defend her ideas but launch an offensive that showcased their worth. The clock ticked toward midnight as Maya pressed on, adrenaline sustaining her focus. But just as she thought she had grasped every angle, an unsettling notion crept into her mind. What if, in trying to protect her initiative, she inadvertently pushed allies away? The stakes were rising, and just as certainty began to sink in, she heard a knock on the door. Her breath caught. She hadn't anticipated anyone stopping by at this late hour. Intrigued by the sudden shift in her solitude, she opened the door, her mind racing through possibilities. There, standing in the dim light, was someone she would never have expected to see. A decision loomed just beyond her threshold, and it threatened to unravel everything she'd worked to establish. Maya's heart raced as she opened the door, revealing the last person she had expected. It was Isla, her former mentor, and the very woman who had once taught her the intricacies of navigating the corporate landscape. Initially filled with joy at the surprise reunion, that emotion quickly morphed into apprehension. Isla, Maya said, barely able to mask her wariness. What brings you here at this hour? Isla stepped inside, her confident demeanor clashing with the vulnerability in Maya's eyes. I thought you might need a friend, especially considering the news about Marcus. I heard about his proposal. Her voice was steady, but Maya sensed an unspoken weight behind it. Maya closed the door, taking a breath to steady herself. Yes, I did hear. Her tone was curt, but she didn't have the energy for small talk. It was time to get to the point. Look, I'm not here to stir up old emotions, Isla began. I want to help you. Maya's instincts screamed doubt. Help me? After everything? You expect me to trust you again? The bitterness in her voice surprised even her, but it was too late to take it back. Isla nodded, unflinching. I know I messed up. I left you to fend for yourself when I accepted that promotion overseas. But you face an uphill battle with Marcus. He won't play fair, and I believe you're more than capable of taking him on. You just need support. Maya weighed Isla's words, caught between resentment and the yearning for the allyship she desperately needed. What do you propose? You have quit being afraid of Marcus. Now you need to make it clear to everyone else in the office that you're not just a fleeting idea. You're a force. Maya felt a flicker of excitement mixed with hesitation. But she was not merely ready to fight. She had been preparing for this moment. If I'm going to confront him, I need to have my facts in order. Not just my workshops. I want to showcase how they benefit the company overall. Isla's expression softened, a glimmer of pride illuminating her features. That's the spirit. Combine your initiative with measurable outcomes. Show the facts, the figures, outclass him in every possible way. Maya's mind was racing, the gravity of Isla's suggestion sinking in. She could craft a presentation that laid bare the advantages of her workshops, but they needed a strategy that highlighted her insights as a leader without leaning on personal grudges. Isla, Maya said, feeling the momentum shift. I'll need your experience to map this out. We can leverage your industry contacts for endorsements. If we present this as a unified front, it might counteract any potential sabotage from Marcus. Isla leaned in closer, visibly intrigued. I can commit to preparing a few high-profile endorsements for you. But this goes beyond just showing Marcus he's wrong. It's about establishing your place in the company as a credible leader. A competitive energy ignited in Maya's core. Allies could make all the difference. Yes, we need to flip this narrative. It's time for me to expose not just my workshops, but everything Marcus underestimates about me. As they strategized, brainstorming methods to utilize data effectively and create an impactful narrative, Maya's confidence swelled. With each passing moment, she felt more like the commanding presence she aspired to be, less a victim of Marcus's actions and more an architect of her destiny. When they finally wrapped up their intense discussion, Maya looked Isla in the eyes, steely resolve radiating from her. Prepare to help me launch this initiative. Marcus won't know what hit him. As they stood to leave, a sudden thought crashed through Maya's excitement. The risks of trusting Isla again. A tiny thread of reliance had begun to weave between them. Would it hold strong through their battle? With that lingering uncertainty in her mind, both women were ready to unveil their plans. But just as they exited the office, Maya's phone buzzed again, a notification lighting up the screen. It was a forwarded message from a colleague. Marcus isn't finished. He's arranged a surprise meeting tomorrow with the board about his proposal. Be prepared. Maya's stomach twisted. The fight was imminent, and as she exchanged a quick glance with Isla, she could sense the storm brewing ahead. The moment of truth was rapidly approaching. Maya stood frozen for a brief moment, the weight of the message pressing down on her as if it were a physical force. The board meeting had not been on her radar, and now, with the deadline looming just hours away, she felt the familiar mix of anxiety and determination rising within her. Marcus knew exactly how to play the game, exploiting her blind spots and catching her off guard. Tomorrow, she muttered, a steely resolve beginning to replace that initial panic. I can't afford to waver, but I need to be ready. This is not just about salvaging my workshops now. It's about my future. Isla noticed the shift in Maya's demeanor, sensing the underlying tension. What's your first move? She asked, her voice steady, challenging Maya to rise to the occasion. Maya's instincts kicked in. I'll gather all the statistics from my workshops, compile testimonials, and compare them directly to Marcus's proposal. She allowed herself a moment to inhale, focusing her mind. I need to show the tangible benefits of my initiatives. The numbers won't lie. Good. Isla nodded. But remember, you need to sell yourself just as much as the data. They need to see you, Maya, and understand the value you bring. Maya's mind raced ahead. She pictured the meeting room, the board members seated with their critical eyes fixed on her. She would need to start by establishing her credibility, acknowledging the challenges, but delivering a compelling narrative of growth and impact. No matter how adept Marcus was at muddying the waters, she had the experience to back herself up. You'll need visuals too, Isla suggested. A compelling presentation can be as powerful as your words. Maya nodded, her resolve hardening. Let's stay up and work on the visuals together. If I can present a smart, organized proposal that highlights everything I've accomplished and counters any potential doubts about my leadership, then I'll have them on my side, at least some of them. As they settled down with laptops and copious notes, Maya's mind flickered back to her experiences under Isla's mentorship. This was her chance to reclaim not just her place, but to bulk up her competence to where no one could dismiss her again. Creativity sparked as Maya began to outline her presentation, how to frame her workshops as pivotal to team growth. She thought about the team's achievements, the morale boosts, the increased engagement, and how Marcus underestimated the ripple effects of her initiatives. What if, she pondered aloud, I incorporate some personal anecdotes, show the evolution of those who benefited from my outreach? Isla grinned, impressed. That's the essence of a compelling story. Keep it real, relatable. You want them to feel the impact on a personal level. As the hours slid by, the atmosphere in the room shouldered distraction and fatigue, but Maya felt invigorated. With every click of her keyboard, she was not just preparing a presentation. She was crafting a narrative that could alter the trajectory of her career. Still, doubts pricked at the edges of her resolve. Could she indeed convince the board that she was the better choice? As the clock ticked toward early morning, exhaustion set in, but Maya pushed through. Isla adjusted the lighting, making it less harsh, creating a more conducive work environment. You're doing this, Maya, and you have the skills, Isla reassured her. I know, Maya replied. though a sliver of fear still lurked at the back of her mind. The stakes had never been higher. After finalizing their slides, they stood back to evaluate their work. But just as they were about to call it a night, Maya's phone buzzed again. A notification from another colleague arrived just as her heart began to settle. Marcus has been in contact with the board already. Everyone is aware of his proposal. You're the only one they haven't heard from yet. The words struck Maya like a punch to the gut. She had only hours left. If Marcus had already begun shaping the board's perception, she would need to counteract him vigorously. Tomorrow, I need to not just present. I need to dominate, Maya declared, her voice steady, but her heart thundering. The weight of their task loomed large, but this was the moment she had been preparing for. With Isla by her side, Maya prepared to step into her destiny. Tomorrow would not only be an opportunity to stake her claim, it would also be a test of her ability to confront not just Marcus, but the self-doubt that threatened to derail her. Would she emerge victorious, or would the insecurities still lodged deep within her subdue her spirit once more? The sun peeked through the blinds, casting narrow beams of light across the cluttered workspace. Maya pushed aside the remnants of their late-night efforts, crumpled papers, half-drunk coffee cups, and glowing laptop screens. With the presentation finalized, she'd pushed her limits, but her apprehension clung to her like damp clothes. The digital clock ticked relentlessly, marking the dwindling minutes until the board meeting. Isla, still groggy yet spirited, turned to Maya, her dark eyes sharp. You should take a moment to breathe. This is your time, not just a defense against Marcus. Maya nodded, attempting to shake off the tension. Reflection washed over her. She remembered why she had gotten into this field in the first place. Her passion for fostering talent and creating opportunities. But today, it wasn't merely about passion. It was about endurance and resilience. The weight of the chairs in the boardroom, the glare of the fluorescent lights, the prying eyes of her colleagues. All of it loomed intimidatingly in her mind. But if she truly believed in her work, she needed to harness that fear, turn it into fuel. She must not present defensively. This was an opportunity to showcase her journey and accomplishments. Do you remember my first workshop? Maya asked Isla, nostalgia creeping into her voice. The one where you almost lost your voice? Isla laughed lightly, but Maya could see the acknowledgement in her eyes. You knocked it out of the park. Exactly, but that feeling didn't come from perfection. It came from getting up, stumbling, and learning. Maya's resolve began to solidify. Each experience forged her into a leader, each lesson an essential piece of her professional identity. With newfound determination, she flipped through her slides again. During the presentation, she didn't just need to recount achievements. She must evoke a sense of connection that would pull her audience into the narrative. Their heads would not nod simply because of statistics. They had to believe in her vision, her capability to elevate the company in ways that Marcus could never comprehend. What remained was her average self-doubt. Will they see it? Can I really claim my place among them? The questions gnawed at her, but deeper down, a voice emerged clearer than ever, rebuking the negativity. You've earned this. You're capable. Maya took a deep breath, centering herself. She ran through her personal anecdotes, refining her delivery in her mind. Her strengths lay in storytelling and relatability, qualities that had always endeared her to the teams she led. The impact of her workshops transformed lives. She just needed to convey it compellingly. Finally, it was time to leave. Standing at the door, Isla squeezed her shoulder. No backing down now. Just remember, it's okay to lean on the team. You might surprise yourself. I will. Maya's voice was firm. She stepped into the present moment, ready to share her journey, ready to advocate for a future not just as a survivor of the challenges posed by Marcus, but as a beacon of what innovative leadership in her field could look like. As she entered the boardroom, each step reverberated with potential. The table was lined with her peers, some welcoming, others suspicious. Maya's heart raced. She could sense their anticipation. This was it, the moment to redefine her narrative. She could shift the momentum back in her favor. But the moment she saw Marcus leaning casually against the wall, an air of certainty surrounding him, something inside her shifted. It was no longer merely about the presentation. It was a direct confrontation, an unfolding conflict to reclaim her worth. The air thickened as the board chair called the meeting to order. Maya settled into her place, her palms slightly sweating against her notes. She could already hear Marcus's voice interjecting, unearthing doubt. With every passing breath, the stakes heightened. In the depths of her mind, a thought crystallized. This is not just about winning or losing. This is about claiming my right to be here. The chair nodded to her, and just as she prepared to begin, Marcus smirked, infusing the atmosphere with his disdain. The silent gauntlet had been thrown down, and Maya squared her shoulders, ready for the battle ahead. "Let's begin," she said, her voice steady. But her heart raced with a rhythm that echoed the clash about to unfold. Would she be able to not just present, but shake Marcus's confidence to its core? The meeting was underway, but the first words she spoke would set the tone for everything to follow. Maya inhaled deeply, gathering every ounce of confidence cultivated over the past weeks. The room buzzed with anticipation, the board members' eyes flickering with curiosity. This was her moment, her stage, the space where she would not only present her ideas, but reclaim her narrative. As she stood, her nerves began to dissipate. "Thank you all for being here today. I want to share a vision that goes beyond typical corporate growth." Her voice resonated clearly, and she caught the attention of each person in the room, including Marcus, who shifted uncomfortably at her assertiveness. Maya clicked through the first slide, showcasing the impact of her workshops, testimonials from participants detailing how her initiatives inspired them to rise above barriers. Each of these stories speaks volumes about the power of representation and authentic leadership, she asserted. But it isn't just about anecdotal success. It's about measurable change within our company's culture. She turned to the statistics next, displaying data that highlighted the correlation between diverse leadership and improved fiscal outcomes. As informational numbers flashed across the screen, she could feel Marcus's gaze sharpening, searching for cracks but finding her standing resolutely. Diversity isn't just a checkmark for compliance, it's an essential driver for innovation, she continued, sustaining her focus. The challenge we face is not how to integrate diverse voices, but how to amplify them effectively to transform our organization. Maya locked eyes with the board members as she transitioned into personal anecdotes, her journey from the unpredictable struggles of her childhood to becoming a resilient leader. She felt her narrative weaving through the room's fabric, personalized and impactful. "I've encountered betrayal, yes, but I've also learned to turn those betrayals into fuel for my ambitions." That statement hung in the air, met with a mix of intrigue and discomfort on Marcus's face. She recognized his challenge as paramount, but felt empowered to face it. "What we are creating isn't merely a series of workshops. We are opening pathways, investing in both people and progress," she pressed on. With each point she made, she pitted her vision against his proposal, systematically dismantling his arguments while aligning her insights with the company's core values and mission. The board's engagement deepened. Nods of agreement cascaded throughout the ranks. Maya felt the energy shift from what she anticipated would be a conflict to a dialogue rife with possibility and excitement. The more she spoke, the more she saw her words inspiring others. "Imagine what we could accomplish if we implemented structured programs that didn't just quaintly encourage diversity, but prioritized mentorship and skill building," she urged, her confidence like a palpable force now filling the room. When she finished her presentation, silence enveloped the space for a heartbeat. Then the chairperson broke it, leaning in slightly. "Maya, those statistics and personal examples clearly illustrate how impactful your initiatives could be. I think there may be some merit in exploring this further." The board erupted into a discussion. Maya felt her heart swell with achievement. The validation of her efforts resonated through her very being. This was proof that her fears had been misplaced, that true passion driven by purpose had triumphed. But then, Marcus interjected, his voice slithering through the energy. "Can we truly afford to invest in something unproven? My proposal provides clearer cost efficiencies." Where he seemed to ooze reassurance, masking the genuine threat he posed. Maya met his gaze, steady and resolute. "Marcus, Would you prefer short-term savings over long-term success? Wouldn't it be wiser to invest in something that fosters our diverse talent, thus ensuring our innovation? What I propose isn't merely an expense, it's an investment in our future. The board turned to him as an unease rippled through the group. Maya had shifted the focus, repositioning herself as a viable force. His smirk faded as his anticipated controls began to slip through his fingers. With questions flying about the alignment of her proposals to the company's long-term vision, Maya felt her transformation blossom into visibility. The very shadows which once threatened to encapsulate her were now crumbling, exposing her alignment. Not just as a tech professional, but as a leader poised to propel her company towards vibrant change. As the conversation deepened, Maya found herself absorbed in discussions about logistics and timelines, eagerly engaging the board members who were now intrigued and exploring her suggestions. She listened attentively, responding with certainty and nuance. Finally, the chair called for a vote on the immediate consideration of her workshops. Those in favor of exploring Maya's proposal as a priority, raise your hand, they instructed, and several hands shot up throughout the room, even some from members she hadn't expected. Marcus's expression furrowed with anger and disbelief as he remained seated, the clear momentum of the room shifting in her favor. Maya smiled inside, experiencing an immense wave of relief. She had proven her worth. She took a moment while the approval settled into reality, reflecting on her journey. It was not merely about confronting Marcus or salvaging her seat. It was about fortifying a new narrative both in her life and within the industry. The feeling of reclaiming her voice washed over her. She had achieved more in this one meeting than she ever thought she could. After the adjournment, her heart galloped with both elation and empowerment. She had shifted the narrative not only for herself, but had set a precedent for others to continue that journey of empowerment she had envisioned. Maya was no longer simply a voice amid the whispers. She had emerged as a resonant leader, recognized competency echoing in the halls of the company. With the groundwork for her workshops laid out, she could establish a ripple effect echoing through her community and beyond. As she walked out of the room, her phone buzzed again, this time not with a message from Marcus, but from her mentor, praising the impact of her presentation. It was official. Maya had come full circle, having transcended an underdog narrative to become the inspiring leader she was always meant to be, ready to guide others into their own future. In that moment, she realized the power of not just resilience but the courage to lift others alongside her. You need to subscribe now. By subscribing immediately to the channel, you won't miss exclusive emotional stories like this one. Leave a like now to show your support and feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this powerful ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion about personal transformation. This is the moment to stand with stories of true personal overcoming and growth. Don't wait even one more second to share.